Hi everyone, this is Mr. Fukowski. Happy Snow Day Part 2. I'm just going to lead you through the PowerPoint notes and just show you a brief video. You don't need to worry about the nomination hearing. I'm not sure what we're going to do about that as a result of the second snow day because we do have to keep on track. Nevertheless, let's get into Part 4 of our PowerPoint. And on the other day, we looked at the nature of the judicial system and the major participants and lawyers. And today we're going to be looking more specifically at the Supreme Court. So, as we know, the selection of judges in Article 3, it's extremely ambiguous and unclear, and that basically the only thing that a justice needs is good behavior, and that in of itself is very unclear. What constitutes good behavior? It doesn't say anything about age, it doesn't say anything about citizenship. So really the Constitution is very, very silent, unlike the other branches which specify specific ages, such as being 25 in the House of Reps, or having to be at least 35 to become president. So that is very interesting, almost as if Article 3 is an afterthought. But as we know that the president will nominate federal judges and justices, and that, of course, the Senate has to confirm these, and that is the role of checks and balances. So when the president is making a decision as to who to nominate, he's going to be taking input from various sources, everyone from the Department of Justice, the FBI, members of Congress without a doubt, even sitting judges, as well as the Bar Association, which essentially accreditates lawyers. So really the selection of judges is a highly political process for a branch that's supposed to stay above the fray of politics. So if you look at the Supreme Court, it's sort of their iconic picture, and then you either see a donkey or a horse that basically shows their political ideology. As of right now, the Supreme Court, 4 justices are more conservative, 4 are more liberal, and then you have one that sort of sways on both sides. So, this is in some ways a politicized court, even though, as we said earlier, this is not supposed to be the way that it is. Nevertheless, politics seems to enter every little crevice that it can, just like water. But when the president is selecting judges, especially to the lower courts, right, those inferior courts, those district courts, and the Court of Appeals, there's something called senatorial courtesy, in that the Senate will not confirm district court judges if a senior senator from that state where the court is located objects. So hypothetically, if Obama was going to nominate Judge A, but Senator Booker or Senator Menendez objects to it, out of courtesy you would not nominate that person. Sort of like a unwritten rule and a precedent that has been utilized over the course of time. In addition, the president will check with senators ahead of time due to the confirmation process. It takes a long time, and it is somewhat embarrassing if your nominee does not get passed through the Senate. So you want to make sure that the person that you're selecting has a decent chance of getting confirmed by the Senate. Now, it is, of course, important to note that the president definitely has much more influence in the appellate court as opposed to the Supreme Court, which is a little bit more difficult. That's where we see more policy that's going to be made. At the Supreme Court, that's typically where you're going to see a president's political philosophy play more of a role. And also keep this in mind, too, that no president can make every appointment to the Supreme Court. Judges have tenure for life. Again, the whole idea is to insulate them from politics. But keep this in mind. For instance, President Nixon, when he was in power, nominated 4 justices. I mean, that is a heck of a number. Versus Carter, who actually didn't nominate any because there were no vacancies. But, whether you're nominating 1 or 2 or 4, you're just not impacting them for the time that you're in the presidency. You're impacting them for years to come. I mean, there can be up to like a 30-year gap between when you served as president and when your nominee leaves the Supreme Court, either because of retirement or death or whatever the reason. So definitely that nomination process has a lasting impact sometimes for decades. Now, the confirmation process is definitely much more of a formality for the federal district courts. As you get to the appeals court, it's going to get a little bit more rigorous. And definitely the Supreme Court is the most rigorous because, again, that's where the most policy and influential decisions come down. So the Senate Judiciary Committee will interview nominees. It will hold hearings. You can even see them on C-SPAN before they even go to the full Senate. So if you're on the Senate Judiciary Committee, I mean, that is a very powerful committee. And if a committee, if the committee rather, rejects this nominee, then typically the entire Senate is going to reject the entire nomination. Since 2008, about 28 out of the 148 individuals nominated to the Supreme Court have not been confirmed. So looking at those odds, you still have a decent chance of getting selected, but there are definitely instances of that not happening, especially under George W. Bush. I want to take just a quick moment right now to just segue to a brief YouTube video of Justice Sotomayor when she was being interviewed by the Senate Judiciary Committee based on her views concerning abortion. Just take a look.
On what basis would George Pavia, who was apparently a senior partner in the law firm that hired you as a corporate litigator, on what basis would he say that he thinks support of abortion rights would be in line with your generally liberal instincts? He's quoted in this article saying, quote, "I can guarantee she'll be for abortion rights," close quote. On what basis would Mr. Pavia say that, if you know?
I have no idea, since I know for a fact I never spoke to him about my views on abortion, frankly, on my views on any social issue.
Do you agree with his statement that you have generally liberal instincts?
If he was talking about the fact that I served on a particular board that promoted equal opportunity for people, the Puerto Rican Legal Defense and Education Fund, then you could talk about that being a liberal instinct in the sense that I promote equal opportunity in America and the attempts to ensure that. But he has not read my jurisprudence for 17 years, I can assure you. He's a corporate litigator, and my experience with corporate litigators is that they only look at the law when it affects the case before them.
So certainly saw in that brief YouTube clip how the Senate Judiciary Committee will vet a nominee up to, hours and hours based on, how they've ruled in the past. You saw that Sotomayor was nominated after she served on the Court of Appeals for quite some time. You had senators grilling, well, where do you stand on abortion? Are you more liberal? And they will just go through their background. They will vet them completely. Again, it's an extremely rigorous process, as you saw there. You can watch hours of testimony on C-SPAN if you so desire. So when the president is selecting their nominee, you look at a number of factors. Of course, their political ideology. You're not going to nominate someone who doesn't align with your political ideology. You also want to make sure that they are somewhat personally loyal to you and to your party. So, take a look at this staggering statistic. 90% of judicial appointments are members of the president's own party. That does make sense. You also have to consider, will this person be accepted by the Senate? Meaning, will this person be confirmed? Because if this person's not going to, then what's the sense of even nominating them? Because you don't want to be humiliated, because you will be embarrassed if your person has no chance of being confirmed. It looks like, oh, this president isn't seen as being strong because, you keep nominating these justices and they're not getting confirmed. What's wrong with you? In addition, judicial experience. Most do hold some judicial position. Again, Sotomayor was on the Court of Appeals, so that's important. Because if you're going to be on the Supreme Court, you should probably have had some practice with this on some of the higher inferior courts. Race and gender has been an issue, especially lately. Prior to 1967, all were white males. Diversity has significantly increased over time when you compare, 2015 with 1967. Even just having more women on it, that's quite an achievement, and we've seen a growing diversity in that sense as well. It is important to keep note of this important term here, the litmus test. It's sort of a quote-unquote test of ideological purity, such as an attitude toward abortion rights, as you saw in that video, or civil liberties following 9/11. So where do you stand on this? You either pass it or you don't. And for some, it's like if you don't pass my litmus test, then you're not going to be nominated. So keep that in mind as well. So that's where we'll end with the notes today. Please keep plugging along with the summative review questions, as we won't have a chance really to cover them in class. So please keep that. Please keep plugging along with that. So hopefully I'll see you tomorrow, and enjoy your snow day.